We've returned from our recess. Excuse me. If all the council members who are staying, please take their seats. You might want to move your seat so you can see the projector, better. Mr. Palumbo, can you hear us? Okay, so we're about to begin presentation A. Mr. Quinn has left for the evening. We have all the remaining other council members here with us. I'll allow you guys to introduce yourselves unless you want me to say anything before you begin.
Okay. Good evening, Bill Dion. I'm here with the Varecchia Company. Mr. President, members of the council, and Mr. Mayor, thank you for the opportunity to present our vision for the redevelopment of 2 Green Pond Road. It's basically, if you're familiar, it's at the Green Pond Road, the intersection of Morris Avenue, right at the interchange of 80 when you get off there. It's a Denville line painting property that we're talking about tonight. A little bit about the Varecchia Company. I'm Bill Dion. I'm the COO. Tom Varecchia is here this evening, CEO and President. We're a private development company. We've been doing this for 22 years for myself, 30 years for Tom. Tom and I have known each other for a good 20 years. We specialize in developing commercial properties. We purchase them, we acquire them, we get the approvals, we do the entitlements, we get the actual build it, we get the tenants, and then we maintain it. So that's our model. We try to find properties that are prime for redevelopment. We believe Denville line painting is such an opportunity for both ourselves and the township to create it for, it would be a good tax rateable. So that's what our line of business is in. The property itself, well, Tom, if you want to go to the next slide, it's just a little bit about the Varecchia Company. So some of the things I touched on, we're a regional company based out of Pennsylvania, but we've done development in Pennsylvania, Delaware, New Jersey for a number of years. Again, we touch upon redevelopment of commercial properties, sustainable developments. We like to try to have it be a win-win. We'd like it to be a profitable development for ourselves, but also be something the township likes and also the neighbors like. So we try to make that blend. It's not always easy, but we do spend time meeting with the neighbors, and we meet with the council and the professionals, so that our reputation and other places we've built, we always encourage people to call other municipalities and get a good understanding of who we are and that we follow through on our commitments. You can go to the next one, Tom, if you want. As I touched upon, really you can see here, you have Green Pond Road, Morris Avenue, and the exit at 80. We outlined Denville line painting. We wouldn't be developing all the property, basically the area just closer to Green Pond Road, away from the railroad tracks. So they own a little bit more. They have some of the operations there. I think they're trying to consolidate, trying to do some other things. So we'd just be developing the front portion. Gives you an idea of where we are. The Exxon, the Shell, you have the Dunkin' Donuts and the diner, so the 84 lumber. So it gives you an orientation of where we're looking to develop. We've done, we do a lot of Wawas, we do a lot of different developments, but one thing that we think would be a perfect fit here would be a Wawa. It's not that we're opposed to other things, but we think this would be a perfect fit for obviously the interchange with 80 and what would be there. So that's just a typical Wawa that we've built in other locations. You go to the next slide, Tom. The company itself, it's I would assume most of you are familiar with it, maybe not intimately familiar with it, but it's kind of the convenience gas model. Really that's been changing over the years. It's one of the things that we'll ask of council at the end of the meeting. You're having more of the convenience store. Back in the past, you'd have the smaller kiosks where it would, cigarettes, it would be Cokes, it would be lottery tickets. That model is changing pretty drastically. And now you're seeing convenience stores that sell gasoline, and they look at it as another commodity for them and selling it to the customers. You get sandwiches. A lot of the Wawas and convenience stores you're seeing are along the 5,000 square foot size. So they're really offering a lot of amenities and a lot of different things to that customer. So not as prevalent in this portion of the state, but they are moving up into this area. But I'm sure you're familiar with a lot of the competitors and the model change that's been happening. Wawa itself has been around for years, based in Delaware County in Pennsylvania, which is just kind of west of the city. Started in the 1960s, a small dairy farmer, grew every year, ultimately did the convenience store, still has the first convenience store they opened, been switching over to a convenience store with gas, and that is really the lion's share that you see today of any convenience store is built with convenience and gasoline sales. So that's more of the modern convenience store that you see. Some of the other things with Wawa, just the logo, different things about it, where it's based out of. So today it has, I think it's about 900 total, 750 of them are gas and convenience stores. Some of them are just convenience only. They call them the older stores that they have, the legacy stores, and they're converting a lot of those. And I think you see it with other retailers too. Go to the next one, Tom. Wawa, the Wawa Foundation, I mean, Wawa prides itself, and a lot of our tenants do. I mean, we're making a commitment to the community itself, but Wawa does that like any of our retailers. Tries to engage in the community, whether it's locally or nationally. The Wawa Foundation is a huge charity that gives money for research, hunger relief. They'll support a lot of the local food chapters, and anything that a lot of the police departments, volunteer firemen, the military, all of those things Wawa is a very big proponent of and supports them throughout the local stores and nationally, or in this region. Just more about the Wawa Foundation, grants the hospitals funding medical research. So as the Wawa name has grown, the company has grown, they've outreached and expanded their benefits and the things that they do for the local community and nationally. So just more about Wawa itself. The hunger food donations I touched on, they'll do the financial grants. Lots of times they support the local charities. The one that's close to me supports my children go to Catholic school. We always do a fundraiser and a basketball tournament. They donate food, they do things of that nature, and that's what you'll find them doing in the community. And they would do in Rockaway Township as they do everywhere else. I touched on the military, the grades, we can continue to go on. I'll go to the next one. I think I'm hitting all these, but as customers, Wawa hires from the local community. They have a very good benefit program. It's also an ESOP, so it's owned by the employees. So that's very encouraging. They want people to come into the company, grow through the company, and ultimately promote from within. So a lot of the store managers, even people in the regional store, the regional headquarters, have started serving, at the cash register, making the sandwiches, and grow and encourage that growth throughout the company. And again, it says, while it doesn't work in your community, they live here too. Again, you're going to be hiring some of your neighbors, some of the children for summers, or the managers. So you're going to be hiring people that live local. People aren't driving from a far distance. They're usually in the same community or the next adjoining community, so they know you and they know their neighbors. As far as what we do, so ultimately, if this project does move forward, and I say we, I say the Varechia company, we ultimately develop it. So we'll do all of the site improvements. In this case, we've met with NJDOT. We would do the road improvements. Obviously, there's some challenges out there on Green Pond Road, especially as you get off at the exit on 80. I'm not going to pretend like I have magic fairy dust and can make it all go away, but we see there's abilities to improve that, especially how you have to pass the intersection to make the left to get onto 80. If we can bring that and control that at the intersection, it should be able to flow better. So there's improvements that we can make at those intersections that we think will help the traveling public. But again, I can help it flow better. I can't make the volume go away. So we see improvements we can make there. We'll hire construction workers. The investment usually for the building, the roads, usually about $5 million. So it's a large project, even though it's a convenience store, it's a large project. You'll see that infusion into the community and the jobs that we would create, both part-time through construction and ultimately through the ultimate employment and the hiring at the store itself. Value pricing, Wawa obviously provides a good value, both for its services, the things that you can buy in there, and the gasoline. So again, right there at the location, it would be prime for the neighborhood, people traveling on 80 to be able to utilize the Wawa. We can go to the next one. I think that's an error there on the site plan. Unfortunately, I guess what we're having there is a problem with the site plan. So I'll describe it as best I can. What it would really be is, if you're familiar with the Wawa concept, It would be a front back, so you'd have a front entrance and a rear entrance, so the parking can be spread out between the two entrances. People come in the front and back, and also you would have the gas pumps, so people could go and get their gasoline serviced and or get the gasoline delivered there. The roadway improvements, the development features we would do. The roadway improvements, we'd also look, because if you come off of 80, we've done entrance features in the past where we can say, welcome to Rockaway Township. We're doing one today in a project in Pennsylvania, welcome to Horsham Township, where it's a nice brick knee wall and you can light it up, and it really is a nice entranceway into the township. We thought that would be a really good opportunity for something like here. The landscaping that you'll see at the development, we're not going to meet the township ordinances. We're going to exceed that. We'd like to be able to blend in with the neighbors. We want to buffer from the neighbors. So if we were to move forward with this, we'll meet with our immediate neighbors. I know it's commercial in nature, but we'd also look to see how we can make it a better entranceway into Rockaway Township. We think it's a great opportunity. Obviously the location's important and it looks good to us, but we also think it would be a great opportunity to spruce that area up and make a better entranceway into Rockaway Township. Now this one will come up, so unfortunately you'll see this, but this is what we're doing. Actually, we're building it now. It's over in Pennsylvania, but we've done something like that, a knee wall with some fences. The aesthetics itself can be worked out, whatever the township likes. Maybe you've done it somewhere else, but we've made them look pretty significant. We've lit them up, and they make for a pretty dramatic impact. And then also what it benefits too is it kind of isolates you can't see into it, you don't see the cars, you don't see it, so it kind of creates a nice edge to the development, so it looks better from the outside, but also keeps the visibility from the inside coming in. But the retailer, you can still see the building, so they still know it's there. So it's a great way to soften the impact of the development. We've used that model a number of times, and the people that we build it for like it, and we think it makes for good for the retailer and the community. So I think that's, well, you can see it here a little bit. We don't have the site plan, I guess it's just not coming up, but if you've been familiar with the Wawa, they treat all 4 sides of the building. So you'll see some retailers will just make a nice, pretty front, but don't treat the sides of it. It's the same exterior finishes, so all 4 sides. So the brick, the stone, they also will frame the canopies, so the columns that go up. So the finishes that are on it are much nicer to soften it and to make it look more appealing. So I think if you're familiar with the brand and you've seen other similar stores, you'll see how they really take it to another level to make it look very upscale. Just a canopy design. A bunch of different designs you can do, an A-frame, different ways to keep the light in. So we're kind of open to that. Lots of times when we start working with the township consultants, there's a preference one way or the other. So there's probably 3 or 4 different options that we can work with and how we do the canopy itself. But here's the finishing the columns, which is very rare, but it adds a nice touch to the actual canopy. So I'll use this. I know we had a blown up version of it, but if you're coming off of 80, you can kind of see this is the darker brown is the building itself. The canopies are the lighter tan that are set off to it. Unfortunately, you can see the landscaping around the property, so we're going to add some significant landscaping around the property. We would also do that entrance feature. Probably see it all along this side of Green Pond Road, wrapping around to Morris, so it would frame it real nice. We would look forward to doing those details. To us, it's a collaborative effort and how it would look nicest for the community. So really, again, what we wanted to do this evening is introduce ourselves. What's interesting about it, and I touched on it in the beginning, is a lot of the municipal ordinances are somewhat dated when it comes to gasoline service stations, fueling stations. The new convenience store doesn't fit nicely into a lot of municipal ordinances. And what you've seen both in Pennsylvania and New Jersey, a lot of them updating their ordinances to account for this convenience model, where it's a larger convenience store. It's not the kiosk of, call it 800 square feet. It offers a much broader range of products. What we have, we're zoned industrial, this property, and as the ordinance is written today, it really doesn't fit how we would develop this. So we'd like to work with the township, both staff, and to work with the ordinance and see how to modernize your ordinance, how a lot of the communities around you have done to facilitate such a development. Now that comes with other concerns and how you do affect other districts. Well, we'd like to be able to work through that. We've done it with a number of municipalities, and in the end product was it would encourage this type of development and would account for what is why we call the modern convenience store that sells gasoline. So that's our request this evening. I wanted to keep it brief. I know it's been a long meeting. Good thing is, I will say, if we talk taxes, it's a good rateable. It'll bring money into the community, and that's what will help with taxes in anywhere. So I will defer to the council president.
Do any members of the council or the mayor have any questions about the presentation just given to us? Mr. Mayor. Mr. Mayor.
We spoke about this in the past, right?
Correct.
Right. What you don't have in your presentation that really would help Rockaway Township and the traffic in that area.
Yeah.
You were talking about putting a on-ramp on Green Pond Road coming out by the...
Correct.
Yes.
Yep.
So people would have to come out, make a right-hand turn, and then go over 2 lanes and make a quick left.
Absolutely.
So maybe if this goes a little further, you should get that in the plan so everybody understands that it's also alleviating potential traffic nightmare.
Absolutely. I mean, I guess, I'm sorry.
Yeah, could you show the egress and ingress on the property?
Yes, so really the main access would be directly across from the ramp on 80. We would put a traffic light there and have the egress, well, the existing one that's there today, so you can come in and out, and also a side entrance onto Morris Avenue. What the mayor was talking about, we did touch on it, we met with NJDOT, because one of the things that's a little illogical about this ramp is in order to get on and go east on 80, you've got to pass the intersection and then make that left that's unsignalized, and that you're fighting the different lanes of traffic. So,
Make a right.
oh, I'm sorry, it says east on ramp, so I thought.
Yeah.
So ultimately what we wanted to do was bring that left into the intersection. Takes a couple different agencies to do that. We met with NJDOT. We would have to meet with some federal agencies to actually widen that and provide another lane here so you can make that left there. We think that would have a significant improvement. It's very conceptual because ultimately we've got to make sure that we can do it with the ordinances, but we had that meeting and I think NJDOT saw the benefit in that, as I think anyone driving would see the benefit in that. So those are the type of things that we would look to do and make those road improvements at our private dollars so that it would improve obviously ingress and egress to what we're building, but also along the corridor.
I'll let Councilmember Freelander go. I just wanted to ask one question. How long have you been looking at this property for potential redevelopment?
Say 3 years, give or take. I mean, it takes, we deal with the property owner, we deal with different agencies, so there's
You referenced the code, and I'll come back to that. I'll let Councilmember Freelander ask whatever questions you have.
Okay, just a couple now. You plan on with that, the entrance on Mars?
Correct.
One entrance?
Correct.
And on the Green Pond, how would you enter and exit?
At the traffic light.
The same in and out?
Correct.
I work right down the street of like Wawa. I'm a trouble way. It's a lot wider. One entrance goes in, you go further down, you go out, you can't go in and out of the same one. And it's a lot wider than Green Pond. It's crazy over there.
And what we would end up doing is we would probably make some widening improvements, but that level of detail, we would look at, sometimes we restrict some driveways to right in, right out, so you don't have the left in. The left in movement is usually the most challenging movement. So that level of detail, the engineering part would take a lot of time and energy and focus from all of our sakes on how best to make ingress and egress to the center.
Then you'd have the traffic light, that traffic light would be closer to the one that's existing now?
It exists in the same spot. We would hold that spot.
That's a tough one. And what property, straight, this is the last one, how far on Green Pond? You got the Shell station.
Right up to the Shell station. We share the property line there. Yep, we're right next to it.
So depending on having the gas station there, the Shell station next to you, and the next one across the street.
And I'd say we are a convenience store that sells gas. So we're a little bit different.
It's cheaper, the other two gas stations.
15 cents cheaper.
So I'm going to entertain any other questions from the council. I just wanted to, if things like the questions that Councilmember Freelander asked could be resolved to his satisfaction in your plan, would you be able to build that plan today with our existing ordinances?
No, we couldn't.
Okay. So that's really the reason why this presentation is taking place. because of the outdated ordinances, the township can't even consider projects like this because they can't be built. So we're a far way away from having the detailed conversations of, that I think Mr. Freelander, Councilmember Freelander was getting to. It's an important question, but we can't get there if they can't even build, right? So those of you who come to our meetings regularly recall that more than a year ago, there was our planner and engineer, neither of whom are here this evening. We're working on a modernization of our ordinances, our land use ordinances, which would allow some projects, perhaps like this, to be able to be performed here in Rockaway. I believe that we had an ordinance that was introduced at the request of the administration to make changes to those ordinances, to modernize them. And then something happened and we had a recommendation a meeting or two later to not adopt those ordinances. So, the Mauritia company reached out to myself and the council vice president. I wasn't a part of that process last year. I wasn't in this role. They asked me, we invited them. For those of you who've heard me talk about the Rockaway Area Chamber of Commerce, a number of council members, we got together last year to create it. They attended one of our meetings. We spoke to them briefly. And the purpose of allowing them to give this presentation is simply to reinforce the need to modernize our ordinances so that the town can even consider projects like this. No ordinance can be drafted, I believe, to fit one particular property or vendor, right? But there are things that happen over time that can be modernized to allow vendors to potentially do business here. And we want to encourage business. We want to encourage smart business and opportunities for growth that will benefit the town. So I guess the question, because Mr. Mayor, you have a lot more visibility into this last year than I certainly have or had. What is the next step for modernizing our ordinances?
Well, the ordinance came before us and we shut down. Remember, we had opposition.
Mm-hmm.
Somebody came in and said that we had to notify.
Well, there was a deficiency in the law. What we were doing there.
So we thought that we had to notify the Exxon station, Shell station, and maybe for London. Now, come to find out, they had to notify the whole industrial
700 businesses,
which was over, say, everybody along the white metal like Portland. So at that time, I think we pulled it back. And then the cost of it would have been like $6,000–7,000. And now, even more than that. We don't even know. And the town didn't want to approve that at the time.
The cost of notification alone.
The cost of notification, all the residents in the area.
Residents or businesses?
Residents and businesses.
Both.
Yes,
Okay.
both.
Thank you.
And that's why we're here today. So, if we go and put the ordinance back on the books, the cost is still going to come on us to change it.
So can I ask you, is the only thing that is preventing the council, preventing that modernization from taking place, notification? Is it strictly about notification?
I really can't speak to that right now, but I can check it out. But that was one of the stoppers that I guess.
So perhaps my most immediate goal in inviting the Richard Company to give this presentation is simply for us to have this dialogue and to perhaps reconnect on that and have a meeting following this meeting to see what the next steps are.
We can do that. Put something together.
Do any council member?
You all want to move forward, right?
I have a couple of questions, but yeah, I mean,
All right.
I don't want to answer them, but
So Councilmember Kelly?
I do. First of all, thank you very much for coming out and doing a wonderful presentation you had there. You're very articulate with your plan and what you want to do. Obviously, you've done it before. The couple of questions I have, and you've already answered some of the questions I wrote down prior to your presentation, was the amount of jobs that you're going to give people. That's always a key component. You said it's about 40 employees to run this type of establishment. And the appearance and aesthetics are something that seems to be a goal based on doing a 360-degree view of the building all the way around. And from what I've seen with municipal land use and some applications that come there, and even like in our neighboring town in the borough, when someone puts in something like that, it aesthetically looks phenomenal, almost a Disney World approach. It becomes addicting to the other neighboring businesses or neighbors, where they start to do the same, that kind of conform to the beautification that you're doing on that area, lot, block, roadway, or path. So that's something that I recognize, and I seem that's what you do, and I see a lot of them when I'm down in South Jersey. It seems to be the common goal of that, compared to mimics of Wawa, which names I won't mention. We have a Wawa that's going in Dover on North Salem and Blackwell Street. That's currently there. It was a Denville Bear and Body, which was originally the Salerno Duane Mitsubishi dealership and body shop that's there. Is that something that's an affiliate between this project, your ownership, and them?
No, it is not. We do different developments for different projects, but this one would be Wawa. Wawa has other developers out there doing it for them.
Has there been you're aware of that, Wawa?
Oh, yes.
Yeah. And have you made a comparison of what other municipalities, we have our neighboring one now, Dover, what their ordinances are, to compare to what we have or don't have in place, to see what needed variances that were needed in order to achieve the approval to move forward in Dover, just to see if there was something that we needed to do, because theoretically we can't spot zone. I mean, it's against the municipal land use law under 4055D. You can't, I mean, case law, health division decisions that are there. So have you done any kind of research with just our neighboring town to see what they have in place to move forward with that application?
We have, and you know, what we had done before, and we referenced the previous ordinance that dealt with your land planner, we all looked at adjoining municipalities. I can't speak to what one, but we looked at other municipalities and what they're doing. And this trend of what I call the modern convenience store has been happening for the last, call it 15 years. And I think, you know, you go back 15 years ago, probably no municipalities kind of envisioned this use. It was a service station, it was a fuel and gasoline station. At this point, you're probably getting to 50-50. 50 of them have really modernized their ordinance because the use is becoming so common, and 50% just because they haven't been presented with the situation yet, haven't done it. So you could look to your adjoining municipalities, you could look to probably 100 other in the state that have already done it, and you've gotten a lot of the regional planning boards and commissions that are coming out with draft ordinances. The ordinance that was sent around and done last year and ready for adoption, we believe was a vetting through both the township professionals and our professionals on what would be a good way to incorporate that into the Rockaway Township ordinances. So that could be a starting point. We thought it was a pretty good product at that time, and maybe there's new input to do, but we think it was a good ordinance at that time and still do.
With regard to safety and dealing with DOT, because when you first was the introduction of the ordinance and some of the concerns that were raised, even I had reached out to DOT to where they were going to do basically a parallel of an off-ramp, on-ramp setup for getting off of Green Pond Road to get onto Route 80. So it wouldn't be coming on a diagonal or a 45, if we say.
Right.
It'd be almost a straight run back and forth with that. And the safety aspect as far as the surrounding perimeter of the building, where there's parking, gas attendants, pump stations, air stations, I don't know what else you guys involved with, but are there all those key components added into the safety aspect of all this above and beyond what's required?
Yes, I mean, absolutely. I mean, I guess what you'll see with Wawa, we don't want to meet the ordinance, we want to exceed it. So when we sit there and say the landscaping, the buffering, the safety mechanisms, everything that we do in the development process will not be to meet the minimum standard, it will be to exceed them. So we do that from as little as the landscaping, the size of the fencing, to how we operate the store, how it's laid out. That philosophy carries through all the way.
One other question, I have a couple, so I apologize anybody if I'm taking too long. The trains area, the tracks themselves, Is there any impeding on that where it would somewhat put in concern of being too close to the train, or have approvals through New Jersey Transit or the freight rail that goes through the back there into 84 Lumber?
We do not envision that, and we've talked about the NJDOT, where access point, one of the things that might happen is it might shift a little bit. You got to make sure you provide safe sight distances. And then I think even the chief mentioned about the speed study. We do those because we don't go just based on the speed limit that's posted on the road. So we'll go out there and do the speed study. So if it's posted at 35, but people are traveling, 85% is traveling 42 miles an hour, then we design it to 42 miles an hour. So that's something, that concept also, I guess, trickles into our design. So exactly where our entrance is, what vegetation we can put there, what signage to make sure there's visibility going both ways. And the railroad tracks will factor into that, but we do not envision that being any problem with how we've laid it out already.
Now, this might be a question that you may know, and maybe Mr. Mayor or Mr. Yatrafano can assist in the answer of that. Currently, right now, we have an Exxon station that's on the corner of Mount Pleasant Avenue and Mount Hope Ave on the north side and the south side of Mount Pleasant, or I'm sorry, the west side. Then we also have the Warco, which used to be the old Nielsen Sunoco, Mr. Mayor, which has got a convenience store in there and gas. Is there somewhat of a comparison of those establishments that we have already in place compared to what the Wawa is trying to project onto this particular property? I mean, they got convenience. That's not Rockaway Township in that section of that? Then the Exxon itself then?
I'm not sure. What was the question again? I'm sorry.
Well, the Exxon has a convenience.
Little convenience.
It's a closet.
So based on
That's why we had to visit the ordinance, because if we allowed this, we took our time on it, would have affected so many different areas in town, competitive businesses, that we didn't want to have every gas station the ability to put up a convenience store. So that's where there's some stipulations on in the ordinance that you guys have to go over before we vote on it.
Right.
So something as small as, a 2-pump gas station, you don't want coming in and putting a massive food mode in with 8 more pumps. So that's why we had to tailor make the ordinance.
So with that, do we know what ordinances that you feel that you would have to seek relief for in our land use?
What we were proposing in the ordinance that was drafted previously was to make a convenience store with the sale of gasoline a permitted use through conditional use approval in the high industrial district. That was I mean, there's a lot more in the ordinance, but that was the gist of the ordinance, what it would allow.
And Mr. Mayor,
There was a lot, I'm sorry.
Mr. Mayor, is that the ordinance that the council had last year? And if you don't remember, that's fine.
Yeah, no, it's addressing, yeah.
The immediate goal here is just to reconnect on this topic of modernizing the land use ordinances so that the township can entertain projects like this. So we're not going to, if I may, kind of forestall any further deep dive into the specific project. And just, the mayor, I think I heard you say that you're open to restarting that process to review that ordinance again.
Yeah, once Jim gets back.
So my next question was going to be, who in the administration would be appropriate to?
It would be Jim, and then we'll have Dave get together.
Dave?
We'll call them, they know that.
Our planner.
Yeah.
Okay, so we're engineering, our planner.
And then whoever you want to
Okay. So a member from the council can
basically
attend.
the ordinance, and then we should have a couple members of the ordinance committee sit with us.
Okay.
Could we, I'm sorry to interject, but maybe possibly work with Mike Hansen's engineer down in Dover and reach out to Dover to see,
Jim wants to go.
well, the right thing,
He probably has an interaction with him anyway, right? I would think.
Yeah, so if we could just, my initial goal is just the township, right?
Yes.
Who are the parties we need to get in a room to try to review what we had last year and what the next steps are? So Mr. Lutz is away,
Yes, he's on
and
vacation.
he will be back at some point.
Next Monday.
And so I can expect to hear something
We'll
from you next week.
communicate back and forth.
Okay. to schedule something?
Yes.
Okay. All right.
I have a question.
We are closed to the public. What I would ask you to do is if you have questions, just see one of the council members at the end of the meeting with regards to this, or the mayor. Just write down your question if you would. Because we do still have the rest of the agenda to go through. Are there any other comments or questions by the council? So just so we're all on the same page, the goal is that the council with the administration will organize itself to have a meeting to discuss next steps just from where things ended last year. Okay? All right. All right. We are done with...
Thank you very much. I appreciate your time. I really do look forward to working with you.
Presentation.
All right, bye-bye.
Item 11B is a standing item that I've asked to be on the agenda with regard to a presentation by the administration regarding a plan for the Peterson Field complex. And Mr. Mayor, this is kind of what I had in mind as an example of that. So to the extent that we're able to put something like this together, put some details together as to what costs might be to decide on how to proceed, this is what I had in mind. And I presume, Mr. Mayor, that you're not prepared to provide us. Okay, just making sure.
I'm looking into Patrick's organization to put something together. We know that we're looking to design a field on top of Peterson, and they're doing 2 sets of plans from the money that I could scrounge up to get to it. And once I get that, we'll present that at a time.
May I? Mr. Kelly?
You know, and I wanted to touch on this too, because Mrs. Salberg had asked a question during the public portion. And you had mentioned that there were no plans and there was no estimate that was going on with regards to the basketball courts in the Peterson Field complex. But I actually have the Keller Patrick proposal that we got back in 2016.
For what?
For the basketball courts in some of the fields. So it's a $4,000 agreement that we have that dates back September 30th, 2016.
Okay.
And when we, I'm sorry?
Question.
I'm getting there.
Okay.
So when Mrs. Salberg was asking about the courts and the plans, and that you had indicated that there's no money that's there and moving forward, but we do have a plan. And I spoke to the actual project manager, Mr. Wawa, and it's been somewhat curbed. Nothing's been done with it. As a matter of fact, the last invoice that we have for this project dates back to January 13, 2017. And there's no conceptual plans of anything that have been done in the second phase, which they're billing us for. So we have an amount of $4,000 not to exceed for the services from Keller Patrick. They told me they haven't done anything yet for the conception plan. Mrs. Seeger told us that there was a conception plan and sent it to us, but really all that was a topo. Yeah, but that's not the conception plan.
No, it's not.
But you said that it was. So the problem I'm looking at here is...
That's why you need the money to get a plan to come in and actually draw the good set of plans.
Well, they have that, though. It's part of it. Mr. Mayor, and I don't mean to talk over you while you're interrupting me, but the plan agreement that we have here, which is 2 phases, field work and prep was for free. Just a topo and run some lines for the size of the courts. And then concept designs and meetings, which was $4,000. So there hasn't been any meeting. There was only discussion about it at the last meeting for the handicap ramp over at Peterson Field to touch on this conceptual plan of 2 plans to be made for that. And in addition to that, upon completion of the conceptual plans, we will submit the township for review and discussion of the conceptual designs. We will then prepare a construction quantity and cost estimate. So they're actually, we requested to have a cost estimate created in order to move forward to see what it would actually cost us to put the money aside for that plan. But you're telling me something backwards, contradicting what we already approved for Keller Patrick to do. So what are we actually doing? Are we going by what the agreement is for Keller Patrick moving forward?
We haven't approved the cost estimate.
Well, you haven't had any conceptual plans, but you've told everybody at the public meeting that we have. What I have here...
We have plans moving forward.
Well, conceptual plans, plan moving forward, an idea, those things are all different.
Well, that's what I'm saying. We're putting something together for you for a presentation. That's all I'm saying.
Well, I don't understand.
That, we gave you what you had.
No, I asked for the conceptual plan, because you said there was a conceptual plan. And what I received was a topo, a topography. That's not a conceptual
You didn't
plan.
get the little plan with the little courts and stuff?
I got exactly what Mrs. Seeger gave me. I asked her
Did you
again.
get anything with the two pictures of the two courts and the third court?
That's not from Keller Kirkpatrick. I got this right here, if everybody can see. I got this right here, right? That's not a conceptual plan, Mr. Freelander.
It's a plan. It's something to start off with.
I-
I'm not,
Mr. Mayor, I hear you, I understand that, and maybe you just misspoke or inadvertently thought it was a conceptual plan, and it's not. But when I called the plan manager from Keller Kirkpatrick, there is no conceptual plan. There hasn't been a meeting to move forward for a conceptual plan. There's only a 5-minute discussion at the end of the meeting for,
that is conceptual.
No, it's not.
Maybe not in the word, it's a, what do you want to call it? This is what the rec committee came to us, asked us to look into before we come in and do what we need to do. I don't understand, what do you want? What are you looking for?
I'm looking
Say,
for-
okay,
I'm-
I didn't know, I gave you the wrong exception plan.
well, I don't think that's a professional response, and I'm not trying to be argumentative with you.
Come on, no.
I'm trying to be somewhat to where we have an exact information forward.
Council President, I will get you a presentation once we get everything together to address the courts. I heard you all sat down with a member of the public to talk about moving the football fields. I don't know if that's true or not.
So, Mr. Mayor, if I may, I would never presume to be an engineer who would design fields.
No.
That's not my forte.
No, I'm not
So,
saying that, but
so let me assure the public.
no meeting, Mr. Mayor, on it.
Your complex will not be designed by Council President Jetnak
No.
at all.
We understand that.
So-
It's not going to be designed by me either.
Yeah, so
It's designed by the people.
So there are members of the public who have expressed their opinions with regard to the complex, and just as you hear from them, we hear from them. I certainly would, look, I'm asking you for a plan,
We'll get a
and
presentation.
you have a placeholder here on the agenda for when that happens, and then once we have that, the goal is then, does it meet the needs of the township? If it does, is it affordable? How do we finance it, right?
Perfect.
Okay.
What do we do about the agreement with Keller Kirkpatrick that we have now?
So I don't want to dismiss Mr. Kelly's questions because, and as I understand what he's saying is, there seems to be a process that's been moving that is stalled and needs to be continued as part of that overall process. Is that fair?
Well, I mean, we've had residents that have come here saying that we're stalling everything, and this dates back before I was even elected. I mean, it says here, if I can read to the record,
2017, Mr. Kelly.
2016, September 30th, it says project description. The purpose of this project was to evaluate the existing basketball court area and development concept plan for the future reconstruction alternatives. Currently, there are 3 substandard basketball courts which have deteriorated significantly over time. In conjunction with the Department of Community Service, Park and Rec, the township would like to construct a minimum of 2 full-size basketball courts. The anticipated project scope will develop concept plans for the township to evaluate the impacts of the project. The concept plans will include preliminary layout, which is what you have in your possession now, and it will also include conceptual grading, drainage in the projected area. Professional services included in base map preparation and preparation of concept plans and cost estimates. We had divided the scope into 2 tasks. The following is our approach to completing each of these tasks. Task 1 is the field work, which has been done back in 2016. And the second would be the conceptual designs and meetings, as well as the cost estimate. There hasn't been any meetings. And it doesn't say anything about our rec committee other than Parks and Recreation. So it seems that nobody has...
You have the information in there that's telling you that we need to upgrade the basketball court, so we tell you.
Yeah.
No.
$50,000 back on.
I think the issue...
No, that's not the
if I-
case.
may
You
I-
made it as if it was the council situation where it was already deteriorating for prior to the council.
$50,000.
You do have $50,000. You do.
We know, you
All right.
voted it down.
So,
No, it was already in there from the year before. Yeah, you forgot about that.
Councilman Kelly, Mr. Mayor, I think the larger point from a procurement perspective, and our assistant BA isn't here, we seem to have an ongoing procurement, an ongoing project to produce a conceptual plan dating back to 2016, to Mr. Kelly's point, long before the majority of this council joined this council. That procurement and project is ongoing and appears to have stalled in January of 2017. And the last deliverable provided is the preliminary layout. Is that what you referred to?
That says the topo and lot line for the
Right.
reports. Only two of the reports.
So just from a project management perspective, there's a project that the town's been paying for. It is stalled, right, in midstream, and I think to Mr. Kelly's point, it started long before a majority of this council arrived. It stalled before this council took office in January. And I think Mr. Kelly's point is that that project needs to get back on track.
And it stalled in March when you voted it down.
No, but this is an existing project.
I mean, we can point to fingers back and forth.
No, there's no point in the fingers.
We agree that we want basketball courts,
And-
right?
Well,
I will work with you to get the basketball.
So,
We need to get the
okay,
basketball.
Mr. Mayor, just to reframe it,
We can work with that.
the presentation, just to frame it, to reiterate what I've said previously, we're looking for a big picture,
Yes.
comprehensive plan for the Peterson Field complex, not a point plan, right? So this is a project that, to his point, is stalled and needs to continue.
Well, they're billing us for the second phase that we haven't even done yet. That's what I understand. The first phase is for free. The second phase has already been billed up close to the $4,000. But yet, when I talk to the plan manager,
Well, Jim's not here, so I can't.
So
I understand that.
Mr. Kelly, am I correct in understanding we've been invoiced for services rendered that haven't yet been rendered?
well, I have invoices here from Keller Kirkpatrick with regard to that agreement that we have dated September 30th. The first phase of this was for free, as it's indicated in the project cost summary. I mean, you received, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, so it is a potential problem if we have been invoiced for services that haven't been rendered, and even more of a problem if we've paid for services that haven't been
Let's see if
rendered.
we're in contract, and it doesn't
Okay,
even go.
so we will ask the administration to please look at those invoices and see whether the service has been rendered, and see if they've been paid, and please report. So,
Mr. Mayor, in fairness, if I may just finish real quick. You've received the copy of this that I received simultaneously. Did you not see it? Do you need another copy of it?
I don't have it in front of me, Mr. Kelly.
No, I know, but you
I
received
know you
it.
love doing that, you know.
Well, I just received it from our administrator that you were CC'd on.
Okay, I don't have it in front of me.
Okay, but you received it.
I could have.
I think
I don't know what you're
if I could just interject, Mr. Mayor, I think Mr. Kelly's just trying to confirm that you have access to the same document he has before.
If I don't, I will know that.
Great.
I'm not going to confirm something I'm not sure what he's looking
Okay,
at.
okay. But you will ask for the document that was provided to Mr. Kelly, which Mr. Kelly says you were CC'd on. But I'm going to formally ask, and I'll send you a request in writing to follow up on this request,
Very good.
which is a report from the administration regarding the status of the invoice for that project, whether we've been invoiced for services not yet rendered, and whether any payments have been made for any services not yet rendered.
And Pat and Jim will look at that next week, so you won't get it.
Or maybe they're on the cusp of finishing it, right now.
I can't answer you. That's all right.
No, that's okay.
So then I will also just combine in that request, Mr. Mayor, a report from the administration as to a status update on that project,
Very good.
so you can look at and tell us where you are with that.
Okay, thank you.
I have one quick question.
Councilman Puzio.
After we go through the process and we get a rough cost estimate, we have our presentation, what is the process if this council as a whole decides to move ahead with the basketball courts? What do we have to do as far as monies? We have to move monies back in, that line,
Probably
particular
next
line
budget.
item?
Yeah, so
How would that come,
I
how would that work?
I believe that's a question for the CFO.
Yeah, that's why I'm direct.
It's going to depend on how much it costs. I mean,
Right.
we originally had an ordinance to reappropriate $90,000, which was going to include $50,000 for basketball courts. But if it's going to be coming in much higher than that, we may need to reappropriate more or do another capital ordinance to, increase it.
Okay.
We just
Yeah.
don't know right now, Mr.
No, no, I know. I'm
Yeah.
saying once all the minutia is figured out.
But it's helpful moving forward to put money aside for what we need rather than an overage or an underage. We could be close to the dollar amount.
Correct.
But we need to know what the project is and know what the estimated costs will be. Okay. Moving on from presentations, 11B. Ordinances to introduce, we have ordinance 018-17, ordinance reappropriating $40,000 of proceeds of obligations not needed for their original purpose in order to provide for Peterson Field parking rehabilitation in the Township of Rockaway in the County of Morris. Is there a motion?
Second.
Motion by Abrahamson, second by Puzio. There was significant discussion on this at the last council meeting. Is there any further discussion on this?
No.
Hearing none, clerk, please call the roll.
Councilmember Quinn? Councilmember Friedlander?
Yes.
Councilmember Puzio?
Yes.
Councilmember Palumbo?
Yes.
Councilmember Smith?
Yes.
Councilmember Sackett?
Yes.
Councilmember Kelly?
Yes.
Vice President Abrahamson?
Yes.
President Jedinack?
Yes. That is 8 yes, 0 no, 1 absent. Next item on the agenda is item number 13, the consent agenda. Resolutions R18-130 consecutively through R18-137, as well as R18-139. The consent agenda, if you refer to Robert's rules, typically does not have any discussion. Is there a motion?
Second.
Motion by Smith, second by Friedlander. Clerk, please call the roll.
Councilmember Quinn? And Councilmember Friedlander?
Yes.
Councilmember Puzio?
Yes.
Councilmember Palumbo?
Yes.
Councilmember Smith?
Yes.
Councilmember Sackett?
Yes.
Councilmember Kelly?
Yes.
Vice President Abrahamson?
Yes.
President Jedinack?
Yes. I count 8 yes, 0 no, 1 absent. Item number 14, old business. We have no scheduled old business. Item number 15, new business. We have item A, discussion of 2005 Ford truck number 605, assigned to DPW. Councilmember Kelly, you had requested this be added to new business?
I did. As a chairman of the vehicle committee, review committee, I had asked some questions to our director of DPW, Robert Shear, and he gave me a very vague report that is dated July 12th, 2018. Matter of fact, some of the information is not even accurate in the report. So with that being said, I made
A couple of requests to Mr. Shear to attend. We tried to get together for a vehicle committee review on the 31st of July and as well as August 3rd. I could not attend 2 of those days. Mr. Palumbo couldn't meet, and Mr. Sackett never responded to those inquiries. So then I thought it would be best to put it on the agenda for August 17th tonight with his attendance. Mr. Sheard never responded to me on my multiple requests, but yet the mayor did and said that Mr. Sheard's not going to attend. And I have concerns with that, especially with...
Mr. Kelly, can I interrupt for a second?
You'll have an opportunity to speak.
So
I'll come back to you.
Seeing that he's not here, the only thing that I think, and I have a request, we have a council meeting on September 13th, I believe, of next month. And I believe that I make a motion to compel Mr. Shear to attend the September 13th council meeting to direct some questions to be answered by this governing body.
Is there a second to Mr. Kelly's motion?
Right, discussion.
We need a motion and a second for discussion, Mr. Mayor.
Mr. Director,
Mr.
this
Mayor.
is new business directly to the administration.
Mr. Mayor, I have a motion
I
on
don't
the floor.
care. I want to talk.
I have, we
What
can have
is
discussion.
it on
As
the
soon
council?
as we have a
Okay.
second, we will have a
Then you can
motion.
vote.
Okay. Mr. Mayor,
Okay.
I assure you, we will have discussion.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Is there a second to Mr. Kelly's motion? Okay. So, give me one moment. We have a motion by Mr. Kelly, seconded by Council Vice President Abrahamson. You just give me one moment here. I'm paging through the municipal charter law.
You need to read the law before I make place.
I believe it's
I want to make-
47.
I'm sorry, Mr. Kelly, what was this site page?
This is why I didn't bring
If you could please allow Mr. Kelly to speak so that I can hear him.
I believe it's 4069A, 37.
Dash 37.1.
You don't believe you know?
Okay. Okay. Under 40:69A-37.1, I think the relevant portion says, any council member may at any time require a report on any aspect of the government of the municipality by making a written request to the mayor, which we just discussed earlier on the other item. The council may, by majority vote of the whole number of its members, so the whole number of our members is 9, so it'd be a vote of 5, require the mayor or his designee to appear before the council, sitting as a committee of the whole, and to bring before the council those records and reports and officials and employees of the municipality as the council may determine necessary to ensure clarification of the matter under study. So that is the section of the municipal charter law that Mr. Kelly is making his motion under to compel the appearance of Mr. Sheard at the September 13th meeting. So I'll just, for the benefit of the clerk who's writing down the motion to preserve it for the record, the motion is to compel Mr. Sheard to appear at the September 13th council meeting pursuant to the council's power under 40:69A-37.1. It was moved by Mr. Kelly and seconded by Ms. Abrahamson. Councilmember Sackett, I promised that you could speak next, so please.
Just to clarify, Mr. Kelly, I saw those emails. It was never said that we're going to have a meeting. He had tossed around a couple of dates.
Yeah.
And he never requested a response from me at all, because I would have been able to make those.
We were CC'd on the emails.
Didn't say anything about having a meeting. He suggested some dates, and that was it. Never said anything about a meeting.
You didn't-
He gave you some dates. You never reached out to me as a chair. Hey, Councilman Sackett, could you attend the meeting? You never did anything.
Mr.
You kept-
Sheard actually put the dates out there for you,
Let me
Mr.
finish. Let me finish. You kept emailing everybody. You didn't
No,
just send out an email to me and Vic. It was just everybody. So there was never anything to have a meeting. I would have attended the meeting. You said I never responded, because there was never anything, we're having a meeting on the 31st. You're the chair. You never said the meeting. You never said, hey, Mr. Sheard, I can't make those meetings. Can we do another day? You never did that.
I did, I asked him for alternate,
One at a time.
Mr. Sackett,
You didn't.
I asked for alternate dates
You gave
for
me
that.
alternate date. You never-
And
you
then you
never
were
responded and
CC'd
said
on
you
those
couldn't-
dates and never
you never said you
responded.
couldn't make it.
I believe you forgot you were even on the committee.
You never said you couldn't make it. I'm on the committee. I've been waiting to go to a meeting.
Well, you
I
read
never
those
saw
emails.
anything.
You read those emails,
I
you never
read them. I was waiting to
responded.
have a date.
You never responded. You
Okay.
got the emails, but you never
You never said
responded.
we're having a meeting.
Okay, I believe we've established we have a difference of opinion with regard to meeting scheduling. Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Real quick, the establishment of the vehicle committee was to review new vehicles being purchased for budget items. I know, I created the position many, many years ago. So the council, or Mr. Kelly, had the opportunity to talk with Mr. Sheard during the budget session about these vehicles which would get replaced. There is an item on the capital budget for $45,000 to replace this vehicle. It was removed. Okay, so for any reason, it doesn't matter. The vehicle committee, at that time, how it's been in the past, is they go to the department head, they discuss and research and look at the vehicle that they are taking out of service to make sure that the new vehicle that they're purchasing really needs to be purchased, and that the vehicle that in the past we were buying vehicles and passing them down to other departments when we still could have utilized that vehicle for a couple more years. So that's the part of the vehicle committee. This vehicle, these two vehicles, were put together from two scrap vehicles. So they didn't get the brand new vehicles. So they had one with a low motor, one with a rotted bed, one with a rotted frame. So they did some ingenuity and took two vehicles and put them together as one, which again, under the Fulton Act, falls under administration. I'm just trying to find out, what does the council look for? Now the question when Mr. Kelly brought to us, what does he want? He wants the reports. And he wants to meet with Mr. Shear. I sent him an email. Send specific questions of what you're going to ask, so he understands, so he doesn't come in to this about the concept plans and all that, so he can be prepared to answer. Again, nothing. Sent him a question. Mr. Kelly again sends an email saying, I want him at the meeting. So again, we responded saying, we want to know what the questions are ahead of time. Nothing. So that's the reason why Mr. Shear isn't here. When we get the plans, it doesn't have to be in the council forum. We can meet with all of them. I can bring Mr. Shear here in my office tomorrow, sit with Mr. Kelly, sit with whoever wants to come, Mr. Blumber, Mr. Sackett, and we can discuss about a vehicle that has nothing to do with council business or nothing to do with the vehicle committee, because it's under fleet management. Fleet management, when you're not purchasing a new vehicle, has nothing to do with the committee.
Okay.
So, and he has all the reports, and I agree with you that the reports.
Well, you're completely wrong with your assessment period.
Just allow me to finish.
No, I'm done. My assessment, good.
Are you,
Yeah, I'm done.
Mr. Puzio would like to speak next.
Part of it, part of the email thread I was on, I don't know how much of it. What's up with vehicles? I don't understand what's the problem with the vehicles, if anyone can answer.
So Mr. Puzio.
I mean, what's the focus?
Yeah, so Mr. Puzio, that's an excellent question.
And you asked that question in an email.
I did.
Did you get an answer?
There was a million emails, I didn't get an answer from anyone.
No, so Mr.
From anybody who was on the thread, I'm asking it
So
now.
Mr. Puzio, I don't.
Anybody up here or out there can answer me, what is the focus on vehicles?
So,
That's it.
Mr. Puzio, that's a great question. I don't have the answer either. I'm on the same email threads that you were on. The point is that the scope of the questions, I think, is clear. It's one vehicle. How many possible questions can there be?
That's why I'm asking.
Okay, I hear you. But so there's at most two vehicles here. The scope is very narrow that Mr. Sheard, who is the director of DPW, I think he should be able to be reasonably prepared for the questions that Mr. Kelly might have. There's some issue with scheduling a meeting. You know, I read earlier from the administrative code that the list of the department heads were supposed to be at this meeting, right? We asked, Mr. Kelly asked for his presence, I asked for his presence. He's not here. I don't know if he's on vacation or not, but he's not here. And so the motion that Mr. Kelly has made is to ensure that he is here on the 13th so that we can have this conversation. If Mr. Look, I think, look, Mr. Mayor,
I'll schedule a meeting tomorrow.
Mr. Mayor, can I make a suggestion?
I apologize.
Can I make a suggestion?
Not answering the question.
Can I make a suggestion that perhaps the motion could be amended, that if Mr. Sheard is not produced to Mr. Kelly's satisfaction between now and the 13th, that he be required to appear on the 13th, so that you could have the meeting sooner if you would like, if it's possible?
What we can't have
In this case, Mr. Puzio is interested in it, maybe Mr.
That's-
Freelander, you're going to actually violate
That's an...
sunshine, you're going to have quorum.
So, Mr. Kelly, excuse me, Mr. Kelly's point,
here to answer.
Mr. One at a time, one at a time, one at a time. I've been respectful to allow everyone to speak so far, I believe. So, Mr. Kelly's point is a good one. The scope of those who have an interest in this now is growing to the entire council.
Excellent.
So, I think the motion needs to stay at just
Well, no,
reduce them to the
give
13th.
me the questions and I'll give you...
If you want to have, if Mr. Mayor, if you're willing to have a meeting between now and the 13th, and it will work for Mr. Kelly to do that in advance before we all meet on the, because we're going to meet on the 13th if this motion passes. If it would be helpful to have an additional meeting among the few of you before, because now we all need to understand what's going on and have answers.
I'm
Okay?
saying, give me all your questions right now, I will give you all the answers tomorrow.
Okay. Are there any other comments or questions by the council?
Yeah, get this, why can't you let it
Okay, I think you heard the answer, which the scope of the questions is limited to that 2 vehicles.
So, President,
Okay. Look, for reasons that haven't been discussed, for one at a time,
why can't he?
one at a
And how long are we going to go, Mr. Freelander? How many times are we going to go back and forth?
Mr.
I'm
Kelly.
trying to do this in July.
All right, I'm getting the gavel out. Hey, it stopped everybody. It stopped everyone. So it had its desired effect, and I didn't even have to wield it. So if Mr. Kelly has chosen not to disclose all the questions he asked, he has disclosed that the questions are related to at least 2 vehicles that may or may not comprise 605, and that's the answer. Are there any further questions? Hearing none. Hearing no further questions, clerk, please call the roll on this motion. And could you read that?
Seriously?
To attend the next meeting, September 13th, pursuant to, what, 40:69A-37.1.
The council legislative power. All right. At your convenience, please call the roll.
Councilmember Quinn, Councilmember Friedlander,
No.
Councilmember Puzio,
No.
Councilmember Palumbo,
Yes.
Shea, Councilmember Smith,
Yes.
Councilmember Sackett,
No.
Councilmember Kelly,
Yes.
Vice President Abrahamson,
Yes. Of course.
President Jedinack.
Yes.
Yes. I count 5 yes, 3 no, 1 absent. The motion carries. We look forward to seeing Mr. Sheard on September 13th. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Okay. Reports. Before we continue with reports, we do have a closed session scheduled. I requested the closed session based on contact I received from the FOP president regarding contract negotiations. For the benefit of the public who are not aware, you heard us talking about the budget earlier. We have police contracts that have expired that are in renegotiation. We have civilian contracts that have expired that are in renegotiation. I reached out, so as I understand it, the mayor has recused himself from the negotiation process regarding the collective bargaining negotiations for the Fraternal Order of Police, as has Mr. Puzio, and that there is an opinion from the attorney that council members Quinn and Abrahamson have conflicts of interest and should not participate. So I reached out to the labor attorney, who's Tom Ryan, and the assistant business administrator regarding this agenda item, letting them know that this would be on the agenda. I would be asking them to be here. I don't see assistant business administrator Seeger here, and I don't see Mr. Ryan here, unless Mr. Ryan is sitting somewhere that's not visible to me. And Am I correct that neither one of them are here?
No, Pat's on vacation.
Okay, and Mr. Ryan is not here, correct?
Because Pat's not here.
Okay.
Mr. Ryan sent a letter to you guys. I thought.
No, I don't have any kind of, well, Mr. Mayor, you did recuse yourself from this process.
Okay.
So you really shouldn't be aware and involved in any letters. Well, what?
I didn't read the letter.
I was simply asking, I was asking if so I've never met Mr. Ryan in person, so I was asking if he was here in the room.
No.
And he's not in the room. Okay. Mr.
Me? Don't answer any questions.
Okay.
I received a lot of emails from Mr. Ryan pertaining to this. No.
Okay. So does anyone other than the mayor know why Mr. Ryan is not present for the closed session? Anyone aware? No? Okay.
I can tell you what Pat Seaman's not here, though.
Okay, so we needed both because they're on the new, if I may clarify, both the assistant business administrator and the labor attorney are comprised of the negotiating committee. And that is who the questions we would direct regarding this, these contract negotiations would go to. So we need both of them. So I'm going to make a similar motion to the one made by Councilmember Kelly under the same statute to compel the presence of the Assistant Business Administrator Seeger and Township Labor Attorney Mr. Ryan for the September 13th meeting for the purpose of being available for closed session for that meeting. So I made the motion, seconded by Kelly. Is there any discussion about my motion among the council?
Yeah, no.
Councilmember Friedlander.
Now, if you plan on handling this in closed session, right, the negotiation, shouldn't we have some information? I mean, you're going to go into closed session when none of us know what's going on, except you got a call from the president of the FOP.
So the purpose of the closed session is to discuss that, discuss the contact.
Have a little information? No?
Is there any specific information that you'd like me to provide?
More information than I have now.
Okay, so the reason that I scheduled this for this evening is because I'm seeking information, because I don't understand some things that I've been asked. So that the purpose is to answer questions that I have, but if there's any specific information you're seeking, Councilmember Friedlander, you can ask it now or when the meeting ends. If you want to shoot me an email at a later date between now and the 13th, if I have the ability to provide it to you, or if you want to meet with me and discuss it informally as well, I'm open to all those possibilities. Okay?
Council President, am I to understand that the President of the FOP has given information or asked questions to the council, to ask the council to extract information from the attorney for the other side, as it were, concerning the contract negotiations? That would appear to me to be an impermissible use of the council and a breach of the negotiation process.
Yeah, I would agree with you, and that's not the purpose.
Well, what is the purpose?
The purpose is so that I and other members of the council can ask questions of the negotiating committee regarding the status of the contract negotiations for the FOP. That's the purpose.
I submit, Council President, that putting the council in a very perilous position. The council should stand apart from the negotiation process on both sides, unless and until the matter comes before the council for an issue or ratification requiring the council's approval.
So if I may, let me, are we ready? So the council is not a party to any contract negotiations. So the members of the public understand that. The way, excuse me, I allowed you to speak, Township Attorney. I allowed you to finish. Thank you. So for the benefit of the public, so that you understand how the process works for contract negotiations, the administration, led by the mayor, negotiates contracts, and once those negotiations have gotten to a stage that the negotiating committee feels that it's ready to be ratified, the contract must be presented to the council for final ratification. So the council's role is to vote on the final product. That being said, we've had plenty of closed sessions prior to this meeting where the council has also gotten status updates. In fact, I think we had one back in January or early February on this specific contract at that time as well. I think it was a late January. So I'm asking for another one of those closed sessions like we had earlier this year to make sure that we understand what the status is. So hearing no other questions from the council, I would like to move the question. Clerk, please call the roll.
Councilmember Quinn, Councilmember Friedlander,
No.
Councilmember Puzo,
I'm going to recuse myself.
Councilmember Colombo,
Yes.
Councilmember Smith,
Yes.
Councilmember Sackett,
What's the question? I'm still trying to figure this all out.
Okay, so, excuse me. The question that Councilmember Sack is asking is what is the motion? The motion is to, pursuant to 40:69A-37.1 of state statute, to compel the presence of the Assistant Business Administrator, Ms. Seeger, and Township Labor Attorney Tom Ryan, who comprise the contract negotiation team for the FOP contract, to be present for a closed session on the 13th of September to provide the council with the status update of the negotiations and to answer any questions we may have in that closed session. Okay. Do you understand the motion?
Yeah. Well, you pass that over to me.
No, I'm just asking if you understood it, right? We want you to cast an informed vote.
Then let the lawyers speak.
So if we're going to continue then. We need.
I'll abstain.
Councilmember Kelly,
Yes.
Vice President Abrahamson,
I am recusing myself.
President Jedenak,
Yes. I count 4 yes, 1 no, and 1 absent and 3 abstentions. The motion carries. We look forward to seeing Ms. Seeger on the 13th, as well as Mr. Ryan. So we will not be having the closed session on number 17. We'll go on to reports. Oh, I'm sorry, Mr. Kelly. You're right. Is there any other new business of the council?
I have 2 items to bring up pretty quick. Thank you, Mr. Mayor, you're aware of this because this is something that went to the administration through Mr. Shear back in May. He still hasn't provided a response to me. Question is my concern. I think the business moving forward. We have recycling, which is on our website, and it gives us a calendar that anybody can go to right now on rockaway.org. Go to recycling, and you'll type in your address, and it will give you all the information for your recycling.
So if you do that, many of you in the audience, if you do it while we're talking, you'll see that our bulk cleanup program, large garbage pickup basically, I was under the inclination that it was always 1 day a month, generally on that 3rd week of whatever day it is, right? Everybody can agree? Well, when you look at it, the northern portion of Rockaway Township only receives 1 day of that bulk pickup. But if you go in the southern portion and other areas, they receive 2 days of bulk pickup. So in, let's say, Fleetwood, there would be a Tuesday and a Thursday for large garbage pickup. But yet, in the northern section of Rockaway, it would only be on a Wednesday. So northern residents are actually being, removed of having an additional day, or those in the southern area are getting an additional second time to dump their garbage. But we all pay for the same amount. And even as crazy as it sounds, there's actually one address that has 3 bulk pickup days with that. So I'm concerned with the whole mechanism on that. I did speak to Mr. Shear personally at the basketball courts in late May. I followed up with an email of that date. I think it was May 17th or 18th. Said he was going to get back to me. He sent it over to administration.
Did you copy to me?
Yeah. That's Mr. Shear.
I was copied on it?
I would believe Mr. Shear copied you, not me.
Uh,
So with that,
Who's Mr. Whittaker? Now he understands.
So with that, I haven't received any information on that, so I'm asking administration now again, that if the northern end of the people are only receiving 1 day and the southern end of the residents are receiving 2 days, is there a glitch in the system? Is it something different for the northern end in Ward 6 and up?
Yeah, I think so. I'm going to see what's in there.
Are you looking for a response, Mr. Mayor?
Yeah, I'm looking for Mr. Kelly's question and response to this. Keep on going, go ahead, Phil.
Well, I'm asking you a question.
We'll wait for your response, Mr. Mayor, if you're going to look for it now.
But if I look on the computer now, nothing's changed. So it's still giving certain residents in certain areas of the town 2 days of bulk pickup, and then other residents in the northern part of the town are only getting 1 day.
Mr. Kelly, what day was that? I mean, was that in
It was in May.
this May?
Yeah.
I don't have it. I'm sorry.
Well, I'll have to reach out to Mr. Shear to see why you didn't receive it.
Yeah.
So I think the more general question that I would ask, if I may, is it your understanding, Mr. Mayor, that there should be some variation like that? Is that
Yes, I don't want to answer incorrectly, so I'm trying to keep my thoughts to myself, but I'm thinking that that's the price that the bulk pickup came, mirrored something like the pickup that we have on North, because I think garbage collection on the south, on North, is also a single day, 2 days.
North is only 1 day, which is the question that I'm inquiring.
Regular garbage, without, you're talking bulk pickup.
Well, we don't pay for regular garbage.
we contract
I pay a
separately?
separate contractor.
But so do I.
Yeah.
What I'm saying, that's, we got a cheaper rate because they're in the area, so we mirrored the bulk pickup, I'm thinking, at the same pickup time as the bulk pickup.
So you think that it's fair that the southern portion of residents get 2 pickups and the northern residents don't?
Mr. Kelly, I can't answer that question.
Well, I mean, Mr. Mayor, it's just a simple question. It's not a trick question.
So
You know what, what we can do?
Can I-
Revisit it, and whatever costs an increase in the budget,
Well, why would there be a cost? You'd be either adding it to the
That's
others.
the way it's been, but if you want dual pickup next year, we'll talk to bulk management, and when they come and give us a new bulk rate, we'll include it.
So do you believe that the southern residents have more bulk pickup than the northern residents?
I don't know at this time, but if it's a loaded question, you can check out. I believe what you're saying.
Well, it's not a matter of, I mean, you can look on, you looked on the internet, you saw our website, right?
Yeah, that's the way it looks. I don't know.
Okay, so we have agreement that it appears from the online calendar that some parts of the town get more than 1 day a week.
Yes.
Right? So then my follow-up question would be, is it, I think you already confirmed, that it is your understanding that it may work that way. Would that not be in the bulk pickup contract? Would that not be stipulated? Okay, so would it be fair for us to request a report from the administration?
I can do that.
To investigate the contract and the calendar and explain the discrepancy to what we expect, which is only 1 day a week, why there's variation from that?
I don't have the answer because it was already sent to administration to find the answer to that. And I haven't got a response back. I mean, that would be fair to say. You're aware of it.
I'm not aware of it because I just looked for it, sorry.
You were.
Yes.
Okay, so let this, for the record, the council's requesting a report, and either I will send it in writing, Mr. Mayor, or Mr. Kelly will draft it and send that request for that report to your attention.
I got one final thing.
Mr. Kelly?
Yeah, Mr. Mayor, on June 4th, we received a letter from Mayor Gruder from Rockaway Borough. And Mayor Gruder was just advising us what was going on with Park Lake, of their project moving forward and to bring their dam into compliance. I know I'm not sure if you have it with you because we just got the follow-up with it attached in our recent council mail. I believe that you might have been received of that as well. It says that you have. Matter of fact, the letter's addressed to you. So anyways, on June 4th, the Mayor Gruder had reached out to Rockaway just to inform us what's going on and to remind us about Park Lake is lowering the lake in the near future to dredge a portion of the lake on the borough side and also fix the dam as well, Fox Lake Dam. And now, July 30th, that had just passed, we received another letter with the June 4th letter copied with this most recent letter. And the mayor was just, from the borough, was just updating us again for the plans for lowering the lake. And the Department of Environmental Protection has given them preliminary approval to move forward, and they're going to be lowering the lake in 2019. And, you know, I'm looking for an ability to have some kind of continuity with Rockaway Borough and the township moving forward, since Park Lake is a common thread that we have between the two entities here. And if there's a possibility that they're going through this portion of doing their job and due diligence of maintaining the lake on their end of it, would there maybe potentially be a possibility to have some kind of conversations and discussions with the potential requirement that we may need to meet on the inlet side? Well, I don't know if it would be dredging or something of that nature. I mean, their engineer is Mr. Fierro from Fierro Engineering. And the last time we had discussions, you had mentioned that the borough wouldn't give you something, so therefore you wouldn't give them anything in return.
No, I said that it would have been $450,000 to do it, and we were looking for something else. We still have the cost.
But what were you looking for? Use the beach. And you know, with that being said, you said that they won't allow us to use the beach. No. So then therefore we weren't going to get anything out of it.
No,
So
I said, you know, you can push it that way, yeah.
Well, that's what you said. I mean, the minutes will reflect it.
Yeah.
But, you know, when I reached out to the borough to get some more information on that, they have an ordinance 0417, which was replacing a prior ordinance, which is just their fee schedule. And we are allowed to use their beach. It's for residents and non-residents of Rockaway Borough.
Different fees?
No, it's not. It's $50 each. It's $5 per day. So I don't know where you got your information, because you specifically said that they weren't going to give you the rights to use the beach. And you were wrong. It's right here. You can get on their website as well, or you could have a conversation.
So I had a conversation with the mayor and said he wouldn't do it. Okay.
Mr.
So I was wrong. I quoted that I didn't know the Rockaway Borough ordinance.
It's also on the building, Mr. Mayor. But well, I don't have you on that.
Excuse me.
And I'm still going.
Yeah, I don't know.
But Mr. Mayor, my concern is that I have a mayor in Rockaway Borough, our neighboring municipality, that's sending out an olive branch to reach out to us. And for whatever reason...
How much, Mr. Kelly?
For whatever reason, we're not...
You wouldn't put $100,000 in the kids' basketball court, but you would want to put $500,000 in dredging a lake?
Well, I wouldn't spend something that would cost 20 and spend 100 to do so. No, I wouldn't do that.
So, Mr. Mayor, if I could, I'm going to reiterate what I've said previously. Without a plan, I'm not inclined to support any spending, and I think the majority of the council would agree with that on this topic as well as other topics.
Thank you.
I think the initial point that Mr. Kelly made, aside from educating us and informing us, I think it's nice to know that we have the ability to use that for the same fee schedule that the borough residents. It's great news. So thank you for providing that. But I think the initial point that he was making was, excuse me,
not $50.
Excuse me. The point that he was making was, can we set up some sort of joint meeting between our two neighboring towns, the Rockaway Borough and the Township, to just have a conversation in response to these letters? Because I don't know that these letters have been responded to in any way.
Did you respond to the letters?
So, let me get the council majority. You're willing to spend $500,000?
That's not what I said.
Mr. Mayor, I'm gonna answer it the way I just answered it. Without a plan, right? I believe. Well, exactly. For what? There's no plan before us. We're not spending any money. I think the conversation is, we have 2 letters from a neighboring town. I think the goal is to be good neighbors and just talk to them.
Okay.
In person.
I have better things to spend $500,000 on, like paving all these streets that the gas company ripped up.
Nobody's saying spending any money, Mr. Mayor. We're trying to reach a conversation.
And that, Mr. Mayor, no one is funding anything. Your sentiment, I share your sentiment. That's a lot of money. But it doesn't cost us anything other than our time to meet with our neighbors and to be good neighbors with Rockaway Borough.
I'm very good neighbors with Rockaway.
Okay.
Well,
So-
I see Mr. Gruder at ShopRite every Saturday.
So, there you go. Mr. Mayor, so I'm going to, so with regard to scheduling a joint meeting with Rockaway Borough, you'll hear from the clerk's office on behalf of the council with regard to coordinating with you and coordinating with Rockaway Borough.
They're meeting, it doesn't matter.
Okay.
When I meet with the mayor, I'm gonna meet with the mayor and ask him to give me plans on it. If you guys want to take this and run it, yeah.
I simply want to make sure that all the stakeholders are at the meeting, right? You have a councilman who's obviously taken an interest in this. I'm sure you have other council members who are interested in the outcome of this conversation who might like to attend. So,
Another example, of you guys just pushing your way into the administration. If you guys want to deal with it, do it. No, hold on. Mr. Kelly went to Rockaway Borough Council meeting and informed him that he's a councilman when, in the beginning of the year, and he's talking, he wants to do this, he wants to do that. He's talking, he's already talking with the engineer. Let him get a proposal and come to us and say, hey, listen, this is our portion of it. You can do that, Mr. Kelly.
Who wrote you the letter, though, Mr. Mayor?
well, I
He
think,
doesn't have any money, does he?
yeah,
He reached out to Mayor Dotterson.
Yeah.
so
You
I,
don't respond to him, but yet you meet him in ShopRite. You don't talk to him.
Inappropriate.
so I think the point is simply, we have 2 letters from a neighboring town. I don't know that they've been answered. Some time. We're asking for time. Members of the council are interested. If it's less than a quorum, we have more flexibility. If it's more than a quorum, we may have to set up a joint meeting. Are you open to doing that, Mr. Mayor, with us and with Rockaway Borough? Is that a yes?
No, if they don't revise it, we'll get back to
So
that.
you're not sure? Okay.
I'll set something up. I'm not sure I want to spend that type of money.
We're not spending money, we're
Mr.
only spending
Mayor,
time to meet with them.
every time,
You don't want to meet with the mayor of Rockaway Borough.
Mr. Mayor,
Never mind. You don't want to meet the mayor of Rockaway Borough. We'll have the meeting at ShopRite for you.
so
Old business.
I'm going to say it one last time. Without a plan for spending money, I believe that a majority of this council is not interested in spending money.
Neither am I.
Okay.
Excellent.
That's it. But
Bottom line.
if there's outreach from a neighboring town, I believe that there's a majority of the council who's interested in responding as a good neighbor to at least meet and spend some time with no strings attached. That's it.
Be social.
Okay. So we will move beyond, Mr. Kelly, I will ask you if you have any further new business.
I don't. I think
Okay.
that's enough.
Do any other council members have any new business? Hearing done, we will move beyond new business to reports of the council, which will be in the roll call order. Mr. Quinn has already left, so we will continue with Mr. Friedlander.
Okay, I'll be quick. Libraries, they're still negotiating with their employees. The Regional Board of Education is still negotiating with their people. That's the 2. Last night, I was allowed to walk the Fort Base House before their executive committee, and they're going to have an open house in the fall. The place is amazing. I was there 25 years ago. The history behind that building is just fantastic.
They're doing an amazing job over there.
Huh?
Amazing job over there.
Oh, yeah, the windows are coming in, the new windows on the west side.
Do you have a date or an estimated date?
They don't know yet, because they're still waiting for the windows, the custom-made windows. They're shoring up the boards, cleaning it up. I saw things there that I saw in Mount Hope 25 years ago in the room, and they're now starting. It's fantastic.
That's very encouraging. Thank you for sharing that with us.
That's it.
Councilmember Puzzio is next.
2 quick things. Rockaway Township Unico every year holds a motorcycle run. It's this Sunday. It takes off at Peterson Field. Registration is between 8 and 10. The money goes to, part of it goes to St. Jude's Children's Hospital, and part of it goes to our Camp Marcella for the visually impaired and blind children and adults now. They've expanded their services, just so you guys know that. Second thing that I had is a while back we did a program with the Board of Education. It was a Stop and Bleed program. Joy, I think you spoke with Dr. Rosenberg, and White Meadow Lake potentially may have that program sometime in the fall. So if anyone has missed it, you may be able to attend it depending on how many people are going to go there. We don't want to overload it because we can only handle a certain volume of people, but it may be held and correct me if I'm wrong, at the clubhouse. So there will be more to follow on that if you're interested in that type of, medical life-saving program. That's all I have.
Mr. Puzio, you mentioned Camp Marcella. They used to do a fundraiser during the summer. Or do they still do that, and has it already taken place?
It has taken place, I think. John Wojtasic,
The Lions Club.
the Lions Club does it with John Wojtasic, who's the president of the Lions Club.
It was done.
It was done.
It's taken place already. Ms. Guerrero?
I'm sorry.
Barbara does.
Yeah, she's a Barbara.
I think it has taken place. I didn't get a
Yeah,
chance.
they have the Christmas in July one.
in July.
And I
Yeah,
think they also
that's
have one.
But they have another one.
In September, a barbecue.
Okay.
Yes.
It would be,
Yeah, we'll figure that.
Yeah, there's like 2 of them.
Yeah, that currently gets all the other line, the Leos around the area, they come and they have a big barbecue now.
yeah, and I don't know how many residents know about Camp Marcella, what they do, what a great program it is for children and adults, and it's a great opportunity to highlight that and highlight something that's right here in Rockaway Township.
Yep.
So,
Takes kids from around the state, too.
Yes,
It's a statewide,
too.
Yeah, good place.
right, I
It's only
believe,
open 2 months out of the year.
and am I correct that they picked up the program after the state left the program?
There was some issues a while ago, a long time ago with the
No,
program.
they
And the funding.
did pick it up,
Funding,
but they cut it down.
Yeah.
They used to go from, I think, the beginning of June to mid-September.
Yeah, they sure
All the
did.
college kids went back. Now they only do it for like 6 weeks, 7 weeks, so.
So perhaps they could benefit from greater awareness of that
Yeah.
and what they do.
It's always fun.
Yeah.
Every wedding I do, donations from that. So anybody getting married, let me know.
Councilman Puzio, thank you for your comments and your report. Councilmember Palumbo is on the phone.
Yes, but I just like to thank Joy Weinreich and the folks up at White Meadow Lake for the invite to attend and march in the White Meadow Lake Parade during Festival Day last month. And myself and several other council members did march and attend that. It was a nice event, and again, I just want to thank you for the invitation. It was really nice. Thanks.
You're welcome. Did you hear that, Vic?
That's it. Thanks.
Thank you, Councilmember Palumbo, for your report. Next is Councilmember Smith.
Yes, just want to thank Joy also for inviting us to the White Meadow Lake Day. I had a great time. Thank you. I also attended the grand opening of a Just Chiropractic facility on Green Pond Road, as did Vice Council President Abrahamson, Mayor Datchison, Council Members Kelly, and Councilmember Puzio. It is really a state-of-the-art facility, and I believe it'll be a valuable asset to the Township of Rockaway. Also, approximately 3 weeks ago, I spoke to freeholder Deb Smith regarding road conditions at the intersection of Mount Hope Avenue and Richard Mead Road, and the lack of line striping on Mount Hope Avenue from Mount Hope Road to the intersection of Route 80. Within days, I was advised that the area had been inspected and that some patching and basin repairs at the intersection would be done. The striping has already been done, and the repairs to the basin and the patching has begun also. Additionally, she advised that the county will be designing a project to take a severe dip out of the road just south of that intersection, which will include resurfacing at the intersection as well. And that will be part of their 2019 project. That's it.
Thank you for your report, Councilmember Smith. Next is Councilmember Sackett.
Just one thing, Friday, August 31st will be the Rockaway Township Rockets Pep Rally at Peterson Field. It's always a good fun night, so if you're around Friday, August 31st, the Pep Rally for football players, for cheerleaders. It's a good event. Come on out. It starts at like 7 o'clock. No, it'll be around the week. Actually, yeah, it is correct. It is.
It's the Friday before.
Labor Day weekend, that Monday. Yes.
Yeah, Monday's the 3rd.
Friday,
Friday the 31st, so that's the weekend, Labor Day weekend.
Yes.
Thank you for your report, Councilmember Sackett. Next is Councilmember Kelly.
I just wanted to make a mention of 3 events that took place week following each weekend. Telemark Day was a great success. The fireworks display was amazing. Green Pond was the 4th of July parade that many of us attended. The mayor, Mr. Freelander, Mr. Puzio, Mr. Sackett, Mr. Council President Jeniak. That was a great event too. And we also had the White Meadow Lake Festival, which was another phenomenal day from all that attended, and the mayor was gracious to, we took a picture together with the Boy Scouts that are a staple in the community. They're a pillar of a lot of the young men throughout Rockaway Township in the state as they're recognized. So thank you for that. I wanted to reach out and just say a thank you to Mr. Greg St. John from the county with Bridges and Roads, doing guardrails on Green Pond Road, 513 up in the 6th Ward, and doing a lot of patchwork on 513, being very proactive about that area up there. It's been deteriorating from the snow and the ice. I also want to say that the announcer booth is moving along over at the football field. The shed's up. I gave them a spiral staircase for them, and they're doing some siding and some deck work onto this state-of-the-art announcer booth over there that's being paid out of the Rockets. So it's no taxpayers' money. They're doing it on their own and funding it. And two important people had passed a couple of weeks ago that were pillars in the community. There was Denny Vandermark, many of you may know, owned Metro Supply, had that business for 45 years. His father was prior mayor in Rockaway Township in the late 60s and 70s. He served on our Hibernia Fire Department as a lieutenant at one time. He's also in the National Guard. And I'm sure that some of his material are in many of the homes that are in Rockaway Township and surrounding Rockaway. The guy was a really great guy to look up to. He's got two amazing, beautiful daughters and one awesome son, John, who I grew up with. And I just wanted to make a mention of his passing. And one other person that was another pillar in the community was Henrik, which his nickname is Hank Thorson, from Norway. His family's from Norway. Bought his parents' house on Green Pond Road. He was a 63rd class in the state police. Retired in '89. He also was an MP. Got drafted after he was a police officer in the state. And he really was a really super, he was like a Clint Eastwood kind of a guy. Three amazing daughters, Ingrid, Sonia, and Vivian, and a wonderful wife. And he is definitely going to be deeply missed. I'll definitely miss his conversations of the old times. And last would be just a reminder that our neighboring town, Rockaway Borough, is having Rockaway Day. And that was the 16th of September. And they are formally inviting the Rockaway residents to be a participant in that. And what they do is the businesses in Rockaway Borough put on this event and do that. They will have closures on Maple, Jackson, and Union. So right around the river, down by the Grab and Run deli, and as well as Maple, which is where the police department is. There'll be vendors and things that are taking place and activities and stuff like that for all ages and businesses and everything else. So again, trying to build some continuity and some cooperation with the borough. I think it would be a great event for people to attend. They usually estimate 3,000 to 5,000 people to show. So if you have some time on that day, I would suggest to go down there because you'll see a lot of great people and great things to do. And that's the end of my report. Thank you.
Councilmember Kelly, what is the day of Rockaway Day again?
I believe that's on it. It's September 16th. I think it's a Saturday.
It's a Saturday. And you said that Rockaway Borough has invited township residents to join.
The council, the mayor, and the residents that are there. I believe there's correspondence that the mayor is going to receive. Maybe you'll get the information at ShopRite. But in any event,
It's a Sunday.
It's a Sunday.
Okay. All right. Thank you for your report, Councilmember Kelly. Next is Council Vice President Abrahamson.
I'm to address pilot factor, and I just have to say the Rockaway Township lead businesses is excellent. It's bringing everybody together. I love to see that we are inviting these companies and we are attending their bidding cutting. And I think it feels great for the town to grow in that respect and welcome new businesses. It's really happening more often collectively as we're all getting together. And I really advise you It's a great state-of-the-art facility, right on Greentown Road. White Meadow Lake Day was beyond anything you ever had. It's a lardy joy. It was excellent. I spent probably the whole weekend there with my grandchildren and number. And every food, entertainment, the bar open on Friday night, sitting on the lawn. It's such a great environment. I really thank you for the hard work that goes into that. And I enjoy and look forward to it every year. There's something coming up, a couple of things I'd like to point out. Forgive me if I look at my notes here in my phone. This coming up Wednesday, the 15th, I don't know if everybody is aware of it, but Christ Church is having a, what it is, it's the community public meeting. The New Jersey Office of the Attorney General Community Policing Project is Wednesday, August 15th, 2018, 7 to 9 p.m. The public meeting will focus, I'm sorry, it's a public meeting and it's going to focus on the opioid epidemic. And I don't think there's anybody in this county or this town can afford to not educate themselves on that. It is an epidemic, okay? There are going to be many great speakers there. The prosecutor's office has partnered with Morris Cares. Morris County Prevention is Key is going to be there. The Community Coalition for Safe and Healthy Communities and Christ Church will host the event. The doors open at 6 o'clock. Registration with welcoming remarks will start at 7. A presentation will be given by Morris County Prosecutor's Office Chief Assistant Prosecutor Bradford Seabury, followed by a keynote speaker, Vance Johnson. Super Bowl champion and world-class athlete, United States Attorney General Opioid Coordinator Erica Liu will highlight the federal efforts to combat the growing problem of opioid abuse and the joint state-federal partnership to address this crisis. Okay, as with all these public meetings, we encourage everybody of the public to attend. And the Christ Church Reverend Pastor David Ireland will be attending. I'm bringing this to your attention because there's such a crisis in this world right now in the United States. Basically, the Northeast up here, very bad. Nobody is exempt from it. Nobody. It does not discriminate. Okay. I also want to bring your attention to Hope One. I don't know if anybody here has heard of Hope One. Sheriff Gannon has created it through the community policing. It's a van, it goes throughout, all over. It was over at Walmart, it goes to Rockaway, ShopRite, it travels throughout the county. I recently was driving up in my neighborhood and found one of my neighbors overdosing on the corner with his mother standing over him, screaming for help. I jumped out of the car and I helped the best I could. Okay, the poor woman was pleading for help. The police officers responded immediately. We did have a problem with 911, which I will address at another time. I've been in communication with this mother. I've connected her with Hope One. He has been a heroin addict for 10 years, she told me. I'm not going to mention names or where she lives. He uses 40 bags a day. And she's at her wit's end. She met with Hope One. They educated her. She's in counseling. They taught her how to use Narcan, her daughter how to use Narcan, and they supply Narcan. And I'm getting goosebumps because every one of us could be in that position, any one of us. And it's good to be prepared. That Hope One, it's just good to be able to save a life. And they will educate you. So even if you have a neighbor that you know has a problem, it's not a bad thing to get educated. It's a terrible, terrible disease, and I encourage everybody to go to this program. Great speakers and great panelists. I am planning on being there, and I think it would behoove everyone to learn about the crisis. We'd have a little more empathy and understanding too. I also went on another note, a happier note. The senior picnic is coming. Please mark your calendars because it comes really quick. It's September 14th. It is magnificent. It's in Craigmere. It's been there
for as long as I can remember, the staff in Rockaway Township works tirelessly to put it together. And it's a marvelous event. I see Mrs. Sweet there every year. Okay, the PBA Pig Roast is this Sunday. Our Rockaway Township PBA is having a pig roast in Fireman's Field. I encourage everybody to support our local PBA. And also, the FOP Clam Bake is coming up. I think it's September 22nd. I don't see Officer Hart. It is Officer, oh, yeah, there's the chief, I'm sorry, yeah, Officer 22nd. September 22nd for the clam bake, and Sunday, the 11th, is the pig roast. PBA pig roast, FOP clam bake, September 22nd, Fireman's Field. So thank you for listening, and have a nice month of August, what's left, and I'll see you in September.
Thank you, Council Vice President Abrahamson, for your report. The Vice President and Councilmember Smith both mentioned Adjust, which is an active member of the Rockaway Area Chamber. And to echo what Council Vice President Abrahamson said, it is great to see these companies that want to do business in Rockaway Township finding each other and finding the ability to communicate with the elected officials to understand processes as far as how the government works. The ribbon cuttings were mentioned. 5 years that I've been here, the last 4 years I think I went to one ribbon cutting. And it was at the end of last year, or it was sometime last year, and it was because I organized it. So the nice thing about the chamber is it's an opportunity for there to be an organization that brings them together. And with regard to ribbon cuttings, businesses through the chamber that are interested in doing that, council members who attend become aware of it, and we reach out to the administration to schedule those ribbon cuttings because we don't have access to the keys to the scissors and the ribbons. So thank you to the administration for coordinating those ribbon cuttings.
September 9th, 2018, and on Tuesday, September 11th, 2018.
Who's that?
So anyway, thank you to the administration for coordinating those ribbon cuttings that have taken place. And thank you to White Meadow Lake for their invitation to festival days. I wasn't able to attend this year, though I've attended, I think, every other year prior. It was my wife's birthday, and we were out of town on a trip that I promised her, but I plan to be there next year. And thank you also to the Green Pond Association for their invitation to the Independence Day parade that many of us walked in. So thank you to them. Next on the agenda, Mr. Mayor, do you have anything on behalf of the administration?
Mrs. Sweet just brought it up. Rosh Hashanah is on the 10th. This is 16th.
Not
2 days later. Starts on the 10th.
So, yeah, I'm not sure the exact dates, but when I was scheduling the meeting dates for September, Councilmember Sackett and I discussed them, and we picked the 13th.
There's only 2 days, and there's the days off.
Yeah.
So you have time.
I have it on here on the 10th and the 11th.
So the next meeting scheduled for September 13th is following Rosh Hashanah.
Thank you.
And thank you to Councilmember Sackett for helping me schedule that correctly. And that's a Thursday. Mr. Mayor?
Yes, that's right,
Mr. Mayor?
I'll just make it quick. I just, reiterate with the Recon, 4th of July, and White Meadow Lake Day was beautiful, but I just want to welcome Chrissy to here. You did phenomenal in your first week, so welcome aboard. Good to have you. Other than that, I'm done. Thank you.
Okay.
Motion to... Wait, hold on. You get yelled at. Gazebo this Sunday, who's playing?
Just go to the gazebo.
Oh, so you're yelling me at the gazebo, you don't even know who's playing. Thank you. Next.
Motion to adjourn?
Motion.
Second.
Abrahamson and Freelander.
What about the rest of them?
I asked the mayor if there's anything for administration.
No, I just said the mayor, that's all right.
So, we have a motion. We have, is that a question or you voting?
No, it's a motion.
No, we have the motion, we're voting.
No, there are two.
So-
He's the third. He's the third.
Clerk, please call the roll at your convenience.
Quinn Stockton.
So the second was Friedlander.
Yes. And I'm first in the yes.
Councilmember Freeland.
Yes.
Councilmember Rubio. Councilmember Palumbo.
Yes.
Councilmember Smith. Councilmember Sackett. Councilmember Kelly.
Yes.
Vice President Abrahamson. Yes. President Jones.
Yes, meeting adjourned. Next meeting on September 13th. Thank you.
I have no report.